Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The name of this week's parsha is Pekudei. The word Pekudei means accounting. The parsha begins by saying, Eila Pekudei HaMishkan. Now that Moshe Rabbeinu finished collecting all the gold and the silver and the copper and all the precious gifts from the Jewish people, and the Mishkan was completed, Moshe Rabbeinu gives an accounting, a reckoning. And our rabbis explain that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to be completely transparent. He didn't want anyone to say that Moshe Rabbeinu pocketed some of the money, some of the proceeds, some of the money from the campaign to raise money for building the Mishkan. So Moshe Rabbeinu had an independent audit. Biyadi Samar ben Aaron HaKohen, he called the son of Aaron, he said, here, make an accounting where every penny, every dime, every donation went to make it clear to everyone that no funds were siphoned off or used for other purposes. Imagine, Moshe Rabbeinu was worried someone may suspect him, that maybe he utilized some of the funds for personal use. As a matter of fact, the Medrash says there were those in the community who said maybe were accusing Moshe of doing that. And Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us that a person has to be accountable. Even if you're Moshe Rabbeinu, when you collect public funds, you have to demonstrate to everyone that you have integrity and honesty and that all the funds are being used properly. You know, we say the Shema every morning and evening. And the opening passage says, you shall love Hashem, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Our rabbis say, all your heart, you shall love Hashem. With all your soul means, even if it means giving up your life, sometimes you have to be willing to die for Hashem. What can be beyond with all your soul? B'chol me'odecha. So our rabbis say, b'chol me'odecha means with all of your resources, with your money. Why? Because there are some people who love their money more than their life. Sometimes you see people who jeopardize their health and their well-being just to make more money. You say, why would you work so hard and do what you're doing? You're harming your health. And the answer is because I want to make more money, because some people love their money more than their health. So when it comes to money, there's always temptation. And no human being is, even Moshe Rabbeinu can say, I'm above that. And therefore, Rav Pam once said that the previous generation, the Holocaust, their test was the test of with all your soul. To die as Jews, they gave up their lives, like Kiddush Hashem, saying, Ani Mamin. Today in our generation, yes, there are soldiers in the IDF, they risk their lives, they sacrifice their lives. But for us living in America, you know what our challenge, he said, was? Our challenge is not the challenge of with all your soul, but with all your might. To be honest in business, to have integrity, to never cheat, to never steal, to never allow money to blind us. And sometimes the test of money can be greater than the test of any other test. There's a story about there's this observant Jew. His name is Gary Targo. He's the chairman of a bank in Detroit called Chemical Bank. And one day he gets a letter from this elderly man in Detroit, and he opens the letter, and the letter is very harsh and critical. The guy says, you call yourself a Jew, you should be ashamed of yourself. You have no morals, you have no ethics. How could you do such a thing to me? And a horrible letter. He picks up the phone, he calls this man, he says, well, what did I do? Why are you writing me such a terrible letter? He says, what do you mean what you did? You don't know what your bank did? He said, no, what did my bank do? He says, I've been paying my mortgage for 23 years. I'm just a few years before the end of my mortgage. And my wife was very sick for the past 2 years, and she was in and out of the hospital with the tests and treatments, and I neglected a year and a half of mortgage payments. And I just got a letter from the bank that they foreclosed on my house, and they've sold it off to another bank, and I'm being evicted. I wrote to them that my wife was sick, I was sorry, and I'll pay it all up. They said, it's too late, it's already sold. Mr. Targo said, I didn't know anything about this, let me find out. He hung up the phone, he went out to the loan department. He said, is this true? They said, yeah. We sent him notice after notice, he ignored it, and we had to sell off the house in the mortgage, foreclosure. He said, how much did he own on the house? He says, it's like $15,000. He says, call the bank and tell them we're going to pay the $15,000, we want to buy back the title, the foreclosure deed. And don't charge the man, I'm paying for this. Sure enough, that's what they did. They called the bank, they said it was a terrible mistake. They bought it back. He wrote him back a letter. He said, sir, here's your house. The mortgage is paid off in full. I was sorry this happened. It was an oversight. It was a mistake. 20, 30 years later, Mr. Targo gets a letter. He gets a call from a lawyer. And he says, this man who you paid off his mortgage passed away. He had no children. He had no one to leave his house to. And he said he's leaving it to you to choose to give it to whichever charities you want. Because he never met a man with more integrity than you. And he said whatever causes you feel are worthy, you can give this house to. Mr. Targo sold a house. It was sold for $700,000. And he divided the money amongst different charities in Israel. This is called the Kiddush Hashem, where you show a person that there are certain things that are priceless. Money can't buy. And that's your integrity, your honesty, your goodness, and your concern for other people.